Hey everyone, Captain Amazing here, and today we're going to talk about my favorite subject, Grand Arena, and the strategies that you can use to climb through the ranks. So if you like this content, go ahead and like and subscribe. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to preface this by saying these strategies take a long time to plan. So this isn't a guide where you're just going to be able to jump in and immediately change what you do. Maybe if you already have your if you're already established and you just are unrefined with what you're doing, this can help you get you where you need to go. But a lot of these strategies take planning. That's Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. That's what makes this game great. Not only is it a connection to Star Wars, but it has a depth and a level that allows us to compete, build our roster, and have the strategy to climb through the ranks regardless of how long we've been playing. Of course, there's usually hard limits, but with good strategy, you can usually bust through those limits and surprise your opponent. So let's jump into our first topic, which is Carbonite. So Carbonite, if you look at the top, you can see that you're going to need 3 squads and 1 ship fleet. This is the basics of the basics, and it's going to have the most variation for teams that you're going to see. You're going to see absolutely ginormous, ridiculous accounts like 10 million plus GP, all the GLs accounts in Carbonite, because they just don't play. Maybe they're just coming back to the game. Maybe they just join and they're just getting that passive income, but they are there. There's nothing you can do. What you can do is you can always attack. So always attack, finish that attack, get those 10 banners. If you do that, you're going to win if they don't attack, and that's just how it is. If they attack, you lose. If they don't attack, you win. Nothing you can do about it. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. That's just Carbonite, baby. You just gotta plow through it, and over time you're gonna climb out of there. But it's a mess, a messy mess. So just do your best. The next thing is you have to win the matches that you can. If you can go in and face a similar GP opponent and win, then chances are you're going to be able to climb out of Carbonite. If you're always losing the matches that are equal, then you have no chance, because you're going to be facing massive accounts, and then when you have a fair fight, you lose. There's nothing you can do. And I just have to say this, if you're free to play, I'm so sorry. It's going to be rough. It's going to be a long time until you can start competing with these light speed bundle accounts, because they're given, or they purchase so many relic characters that it's just really difficult for you to get through. One piece of advice that I have is build those core teams. So if you have Darth Vader at Relic with Merciless Massacre, if you have Geos, if you have these budget teams, Phoenix with Rex, if you invest in those are great teams. Palpatine with Mara Jade, teams like that, teams that can punch up and beat these, because Resistance and First Order aren't great teams, and especially without the Zetas and without the GLs, they're beatable. You can beat them. Also, Imperial Troopers, Veer's Troopers is another good team that can punch up. So these are cheap budget teams that can punch up, that can allow you to start beating some of these light speed bundle players, because I guarantee you they're not great players. So if you have the core teams that can punch up above their weight, that's how you can start beating some of these light speed bundle players and winning these fair matches. And then it does take some time to build them, but once you have them, they lead towards other things in this game, and they're not a waste. So another piece of advice I have you that doesn't necessarily have to do with strategy, but just stop posting on Reddit when you have a mismatch. Like, it's very common. It happens all the time. This game mode doesn't care about anything other than if you lose, or if you win, or if you haven't joined in a while. So that's it. It's just a raw score. You get points if you win, you lose points if you lose. That's it. So we get it. It sucks. You don't have to post about it. You're just going to get downvoted. We've seen it a million times. Just, you know, if you want to post to your guildmates, that's what they're there for. Build a community through there. But you don't have to publicly blast it everywhere. But essentially, what it boils down to is start building your core teams, always attack, start winning those mirror matches, and then try to get through this the best you can. It's going to be rough, but once you do, generally you'll stay out of it. So let's jump into the next one. All right, so Bronzium. Bronzium is still kind of a mixed bag, but at this point, you need to really define your roster. You need to have a GL, hopefully a GL level ship. Something. You need to do something that's going to help you beat these characters. You don't have to necessarily go for a GL, but that's always a good pathway if you want to be competitive, especially if you bought those Lightspeed bundles. Get what you earned. You need to get that investment that you purchased. If you don't, it's just wasted GP. It's not doing anything for you. So you need to define your roster. Another pathway, if you're free to play, is the Revens. So believe it or not, if you get Darth Revan, you get Jedi Knight Revan, and then Malik, that's going to give you an easy way to absolutely stomp these Lightspeed bundle players, because those two teams are S tier teams. They're great teams. Well, maybe A, but they're really strong teams. And even at Gear 12, they perform extremely well. So if you want to be free to play, you're looking for teams that are pretty budget that can get you the wins against these Lightspeed bundles, and you can punch way up. At this point, you need to start getting either a GL ship, or you need to start farming those core teams like Padme, the Revens, the Veer's Troopers. You need to get them. You need to start relicking them. CLS with the team, so 3PO, Chupio, Han, C3PO, you have to put that investment so that you can have some depth and some height into your account so that you can start winning. Still though, for this round, you're still going to have some massive mismatches, and I think you will always have that as long as you're somewhat of a competitive player. So you just have to always attack. At this point, people still don't attack, so get your attacks in. Sometimes you'll win. And then if you do have that GL level ship in that, or that GL, then what you can do is a stonewall defense. If you have a GL and you place it on that bottom front wall, you have the opportunity for that GL to beat their entire roster. So at that point, you just have to beat 2 zones and you win. Or if you have that GL level ship, you put that ship on that back wall, and then if you get a full clear, then you win. And then that way you can cheese your ground defense, put some teams that are pretty lackluster. They have to do something that's not necessarily a solo, but it's not going to necessarily, it's just going to strip a few banners. And then you clear their ships and their ground, and then you win. So it's a solid defense. So either with a GL or a GL ship, you can do this, or if you really have both, then you're going to just climb straight out of Bronzium, because you pretty much just have to clear 2 zones really reliably, and then you're just going to blast through Bronzium. But at this point, there's still some options for you to start winning. Going with efficiency at this point isn't really great, just because usually at this point people start defining their rosters, and if they have a GL or a GL ship and you don't have anything to answer for that, you're just going to lose. So that's why you need to have one of those or the others so that you can mirror them and kind of beat them on efficiency of what's left. Because if you're going to block a zone and they're going to block a zone, it's going to be whoever can clear the rest most efficiently. But if you can't block a zone and they can, you just lose. So that's why you have to have something either roster defining, or you need to have your off meta counters, which at this point of the game is pretty difficult because you need great mods to get them to work. So either or, but I would recommend both. I always say farm your GL level ship and then a GL. If you buy the Lightspeed bundles, it's fine. Get your GLs and then get your GL level ship. Either or is fine, but you have to define that roster. Next, we're going to go into Chromium. So Chromium, you should have at this point at least 1 GL ship and 1 GL. A lot of people have like Ray or SLKR and Executor. That's like the cookie cutter everyone has pretty much, especially because of Lightspeed bundles. and everyone farms Executor. So that's what's you're gonna have to try to beat. So if you bought the Lightspeed bundles and you bought SLKR, then get that finalizer up and running, and you're gonna be able to beat their Executor. You can place your Executor on defense, and then they'll have their GL on defense. You'll have your GL on defense, and then you'll win because you can clear their ships. Or you know, like if you have both GLs, so if you have Ray and SLKR, you can put Ray on defense and take SLKR on offense and beat their GL, and then that's a strategy. So you have to tailor your strategy to what you have in your account. But at this point, it's not just defining your roster, it's what else have you built? Did you go heavy on ships? Did you go heavy on GLs? You have to have something at this point that's going to give you the edge, because at this point, everyone should have at least one GL and one GL ship. So if you don't have that, you're going to struggle. Or you just need the off-meta counters to counter them. But again, you need good mods, you need rounded out characters, good relics for that to be reliable. But at this point, the Stonewall defense is still the best defense. You need to have good mods if you can. Invest a little into Datacrons, because if you have a strong Datacron and then they don't, if they try to take their GL against yours, it's going to lose because you have that advantage, that key advantage. So if you can try to invest in one good Datacron for your GL, then it's going to really pay dividends. And then having that GL ship is going to be key. You can take it on offense if you want, but I think it's always best to just put it on defense, have your opponent deal with it. But you have to do it. At this point, you should start building those budget solo characters. By budget solo characters, I mean Wampa, Omicron Savage, and OG Kylo, Malik. Those are good budget characters that can solo, that are really easy to farm, that you need to get. Because at this point, you need to have up to 7 teams on 5v5 and 10 teams in 3v3, and you really have to stretch your roster. And now you have 2 fleets, so not only do you have 2 fleets, but now you have 4, and that's where Negotiator and Malevolence really come in clutch at this point. Because if you went for SOKR and you went for Executor, then you're going to have that Finalizer and an Executor, and then all you need is a Negotiator and a Malevolence, and then bam, that's your 4 fleets right there, and they're all good fleets. That Finalizer is going to deal with their Executor on defense, and then you can either put the Negotiator on defense and the Malevolence on defense. I personally went Executor Negotiator on defense, because if they somehow had a way to counter my Executor, if they have to multi-shot it, then that Negotiator is going to probably hold, because it's still a really good defensive ship. And then that Malevolence, believe it or not, even if you use a burner, that Malevolence can take out an Executor or a Profundity. It has a chance on beating the Profundity if you have the right relics or the right RNG or it's low stars. So it can really surprise you, and it takes out Negotiators. It can mirror match. It's a little messy. It's a real rounded, low investment ship that even at gear 12, it can really surprise people. So you have to start investing in your ships and investing in those solo characters at this point. And at this point, you have to start scouting. You have to start scouting. If your opponent has no GLs and a lot of fleet strength that's just stronger than yours, then you have to put your GLs down on the board, stonewall them, don't let them take a zone, and then you just have to clear a zone and you'll win. Because if they don't have an answer for a GL, then you win. If you have a fleet advantage, then you have to put your fleets on defense and then take as much as you can on offense, so that you can try to clear what they put. And then if they can't clear your fleets, then you can clear their board, then you're gonna win. So that's where scouting comes in. You have to watch your opponents, because I go with a cheese defense and a fleet defense, but I've seen where opponents put a heavy defense down, and I look at their defense and I'm like, I just can't beat that GL. Whether if it was like Leia or Jabba or JMK, sometimes in Chromium and Aurodium, There's just some teams I didn't have an answer for because it takes a while to build those counters to them. So what I did was I saw that they didn't have much on offense because they had a really strong defense that I knew I couldn't get through. I put a really heavy defense down and I end up winning because they don't bring enough on offense, and then I bring just enough to counter a zone and maybe their fleets, and I get that 2-zone clear, and then they can't clear my bottom zone and my fleets. So you have to strategize, you have to scout. You can scout using SWGOH.gg. I'll make another video here shortly where I teach you how to scout, but scouting is very important. And at this point in Chromium, you should start developing your long-term plans, because in the next step in Aurodium that we're going to cover, it's going to be a rough ride, and if you're not ready, you're just going to get knocked right back down. But you have to get up again, so don't let anyone keep you down. So let's jump into the next one. All right, so Aurodium. Aurodium is going to be filled with absolutely massive accounts. At this point, that's just the norm. That's what you have to expect. These people attack, and guess what? They suck. That's why they're in Aurodium. They have bad mods. They have bad fleets. They have absolutely massive, massive accounts. They probably have multiple GLs. They're probably modded incorrectly. They're doing something that's keeping them in Aurodium. So you have to take advantage of that. And there's two ways that are notable on doing that can really help you, but sometimes you just have to have that strategy to win here. Or you can go with the slow and steady, and I'll cover what all three of those pathways are. So first, a ship's defense. So if you have 2 GL level ships and you put them on defense, so if you have the Executor and Profundity, or the Executor and Leviathan, or the Profundity and Leviathan, or even just a Leviathan, and you place that on defense, chances are they're not going to be able to clear it. They're in Aurodium usually because they have really bad fleets. So sometimes you'll face a mirror matches where you face other players who actually have strategy and farm their ships and farm their counters, and it's going to be an absolute slugfest, and it's going to be efficiency. So sometimes you'll lose those, but they're pretty rare, because this is just absolutely filled with massive accounts that just don't know what they're doing. So if you go with that ship's defense, it's reliable, but you have to be able to full clear your opponent. So you cheese your defense, and then you bring everything you can on offense on the ground, and you clear whatever they set, and then you clear their fleets and you win. So that's the ship's defense. It's an all or nothing. It's a Hail Mary. It works. You have to farm your mods. You have to farm your ships. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have off meta counters. But if you're looking to punch up 3, 4, 5 million, if you're looking to beat 6, 7, 8 GLs with your 2, you have to have the strategy, the mods, the fleets, but you can do it. Or what you can also do is place an S tier GL. So again, like, these people suck. They're not good. There's a reason they're there. They're there because they aren't good. So if you place a GL that they just can't beat, so a Jabba, a JMK, a Lord Vader, a Leia, those 4 GLs, or Rey sometimes if you have Ben, then they just can't clear it. If you're hoping to do that with C or SLKR or JML, I'm sorry, they're just not going to hold. They're not defensive GLs, they're offensive GLs. But if you put down a JMK and they have excellent mods, and you have Cat, and you have a good Datacron, chances are this Aurodium massive account is just going to crash all their GLs and just lose. They're not going to be able to clear that. And then you just have to clear 2 zones. Same thing, if you put a Lord Vader and it has a good relic investment, you invested in Maul, you invested in the guard, then you can hold. But if you don't have that S tier GL and you don't have great Datacrons or great mods, then maybe go with the ship's offense and work on your mods, farm the Datacrons. You don't have to farm crazy amounts of Datacrons. Just get one decent Datacron that you can place on your S tier GL so that it gives them that competitive edge. It pays off in the end. It doesn't take that much effort. Whenever you're done with whatever you're doing in Conquest, just farm some Datacrons and earn that. It's a separate currency, so it's not that big. You earn that energy passively anyways. So just invest in it. But the big thing here is you have to define your strategy. If you don't choose either the S tier GL or the ships, so if you just have like Ray, SLKR, and C, and then you have an executor, you're not going to hold an Aurodium. You're not. You're just going to crash back down and then up, and then sometimes you'll go up and then you'll go back down. But you're never going to make it in Kyber because you haven't really defined one way or another. You need to commit to ships, or you need to commit to getting a GL that can't be beat on defense. That's the only way, because these accounts are absolutely massive. And then if you don't want to do either, you have to do the slow and steady. So if you don't want to farm your fleets, if you don't want to farm your mods, you just have to start acquiring GLs. You're going to be one of those massive accounts as you slowly churn your way through Aurodium, and you slog your way with these other massive accounts, and you slowly edge your way up as you start building, 5, 6, 7 GLs, and then hey, you'll be up in Kyber. But it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time because these accounts that in Aurodium are like 5, 6 years old accounts. They're not young. They're just not great at the game. So if you want to be someone like that, then hey, I don't know why you're watching this video, but you can absolutely do it. It's just not efficient. All right, so let's talk about Kyber. So Kyber is it has as much variation as Carbonite, because Kyber 4, Kyber 3, you get players like me who have like 2 GLs, 2 GL fleets. My mods are okay. I farm some Datacrons, and then you have the very top of Kyber where they have absolutely everything, and they're just massive whales. They farm all the Datacrons. They have amazing mods, and they pump thousands of dollars, and they're the lifeblood of this game. So it's a huge variance. It's an absolutely huge variance. But if you want to hang out in Kyber, ships are pretty much mandatory. Ships are mandatory. If you have 4, 5, 6 GLs, maybe you can try to block off that the ships and the bottom zone, and you can off meta counter. So if you're really great with your ground game, maybe you can make it work, or maybe you can't. It's just pretty much ships are mandatory, especially if you want to start climbing up into the higher level of Kyber. Like, everyone has their fleets, but if you just want to hang around like Kyber 4 or 3 and then get knocked back down to Aurodium and then climb up and then down, then don't farm your ships. You don't have to. It's fine. You can still Kyber, low Kyber crystals are good income. High Aurodium crystals are decent income. But if you want to be competitive, you have to have an answer, at least offensively, for ships. Because if you are just gonna lose to a Leviathan, and that's just your answer, is if my opponent puts Leviathan on defense, I just lose, then you're not going to hang around Kyber, because a lot of players, most players have Leviathans. I would say out of my last 9 matches, probably 8 of them had Leviathans on defense, and I cleared 7 of them, so, and I put my Leviathan on defense, and only 1 of them cleared me. So it's really defining. If you have your ships, if you farm your ships, at least have the off meta counters to deal with all the fleets, and then you're fine. Like, you're gonna lose your fleets, they're gonna lose their fleets, and then it's up to the ground. But if you're just getting stonewalled because they placed a fleet on defense and you don't have an answer for it, then you're not going to hang around Kyber that much. So ships are mandatory. You just have to do it. You have to learn your off meta counters as well. You have to. At this point, you should have excellent mods. You should have your off meta counters or GL counters for every single GL. You can't accept that if someone places something on defense, you're just going to lose. That's not a good answer. If you can if you lose on efficiency, then that's fine. If you lose if you lose because you made a mistake, it happens. But if your answer to certain defenses is, oh, I just lose, then you're not going to hang around in Kyber, because most people have the newest things. And if you just accept that you're just going to lose because someone places something on defense, even on ground or GLs or ships, you're not going to hang around in Kyber. So you have to start having an answer for everything, at least on offense. At least. So you can still use the S tier GL defense, but if you want to do that in Kyber, you have to invest in Datacrons. Datacrons is what separates the haves and the have-nots in Kyber. It's no longer, I have this GL, you can't beat me. That's not really the case. Everyone has massive accounts. Everyone's farmed the off-meta counters. We're going to be able to beat you. But if you have certain Datacrons, it changes matchups. It changes what we have. We're going to try, and we're probably going to lose because that matchup doesn't work anymore. So you have to invest in Datacrons if you don't want to invest in fleets. And if you invest in Datacrons, you can have an absolute smaller account and hang out in Kyber 2, Kyber 3, because Datacrons absolutely define the meta. So if you want to invest in that S tier GL defense, it's going to vary on the Datacrons. Every 4 months or every 2 months, there's going to be a new set of Datacrons, and who's the new top dog is going to change. But if you want to maintain that type of defense where you just like place a GL on defense and it holds against their team, then you're just going to have to invest probably in a little more, 2 or 3 of those S tier GLs, and you're going to have to invest in Datacrons, and then you can start doing that and reliably just win on efficiency or blocking out zones. So you can still do it with GLs, you can do it with ships, but if you do it with the ground game, you really have to invest in Datacrons. Or there's some people that just do the turtle defense. They just take everything, they put everything on defense. And I'm going to tell you, that's probably not the best way. That's what absolute massive character or accounts do that don't like Grand Arena do. And usually they lose because they don't have their defined off-meta counters. They don't really care to play. They just hope that you can't clear enough that they can do a few attacks and win. And then if you start clearing a lot of them, then they're not going to think it's worth even playing, and they're just going to take the loss. So if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. You have to play the game the best way that you want to, but a turtle defense isn't really great. It's not a great defense, so I would not recommend it. And then at this point, when you're in Kyber, you just have to be strategic with your farming. If you can farm the meta things, the things that come out recently, then you're in great shape. If you farm accelerated GLs, then farm the good ones, JMK, Jabba, JML. Like, those are all great GLs on offense. But if you didn't get the Lightspeed bundles and you're farming like SLKR and Ray, and those are the GLs that you are hoping is going to carry you, they're good. And Ray on defense is absolutely powerful, but you need Ben. It's just difficult. And at this point, you need to be investing in Conquest too. Those Conquest characters are lifters. They're important. They access you to Leviathan and all these other things. So Conquest is very important. So don't ignore Conquest. You have to be involved in all these different game modes, and you have to be competitive at this point of the game, because it's just a absolute slog fest. So other than that, that's my strategy. If you have any questions, let me know. Also, if you use a different strategy, go ahead and post it in the comments. If you like this content, like and subscribe, and best of luck out there. May the RNG be with you. Take care.